Welcome back to the Purposeful You Summit. I'm your host, Julie DeLucca-Collins, and I'm excited that you are here. I am the host of the Casa Confidence podcast, and this summit is for you, specifically because all of us have a purpose. Whether you found it or not, it is important to know that others who have found it have also gained some valuable lessons as we go through our life together. So we've put together this summit to help you build a life that you desire, find the purpose that's in your heart, or if you're not sure what that purpose is, perhaps some of these inspirational speakers will help you get closer to bringing that purpose out into the world. And today in panel 3, we are talking about something that's very close to my heart because, by the way, we've all been there. And today we're talking about finding healing and empowering others to thrive. By the way, I have been through incredible ups and some very lows. But I want to know that I'm not alone. I wanted to know this because sometimes when we are in the lowest of the lows, and we're hurt and we're in despair, we think we're the only ones that have gone through this. For this reason, I wanted to bring you the incredible stories of these wonderful speakers that they share of how finding healing and empowering others to thrive is where they are when it comes to purpose. Like you will see that we're not alone when we go through some lows. There's things that have hurt us, but these inspiring conversations will help you gain the strategies and tools to live in your purpose and go out and use the practical wisdom to help others. So thank you so much for tuning in. I want to introduce you to the incredible speakers that have agreed to share with us in this panel. First, we have Christine Schroeder, Nakem Chuck Wu Marjorie, Candace Williams, Jennifer McFarland, and Juanita Gaynor. You know, I cannot do this alone. None of us can. And for this reason, it's important to share all about healing, all about growth, and the ripple effect of positivity that we can create in the world because there's power in our stories. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you after the videos. And don't forget, if you're listening and hearing something that is really resonating with you, that is tugging at your heart, that you're just saying, wow, me too, write it in the comments. All of the speakers and myself would love to hear this. Thank you again, my friends.
Well, hello there. My name is Christiana, and I'm presenting on finding healing and empowering others to thrive. I would like to introduce myself really briefly. I'm a motivation and wellness coach, and I live in California with my husband and 2 daughters. I'm a full-time professor in food marketing and innovation entrepreneurship. So I teach at the university, and I also have a little side business that's called Hello Happiness. So I'm a complete solopreneur, and I would love to share some of my insights with you. So I would really encourage you, enjoy this time. You can grab a pen, a paper, but I would really encourage you, turn off your phone, silence any notifications, and just get rid of any distractions. Have fun. View this time as an investment in yourself. After all, this virtual summit is all about finding your purpose. So if you want to maybe share what you're doing, take a screenshot of this really quick training and tag me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is hello.happy.nest, and I would love to connect with you. So let's get started. My question for you is, have you ever wanted to feel less overwhelmed? Or why have you put yourself on the back burner? Does this sound familiar at all? Does it sound like you, something that you would do? Well, I want to share this with you. 25 years ago, I was not feeling great. And you can see in this particular picture, I actually look quite different at that time because I struggled with a lot of different health issues. In fact, it was very uncomfortable with my own body. I struggled with lack of energy, lack of self confidence, and overall, I just didn't feel quite right. I felt like the me that really thrives or my purpose in life wasn't really clearly defined. I ended up finding this purpose by finding my husband and by learning a lot about health and wellness. In fact, you can see in this picture, I went all the way and earned a PhD in health economics. I wrote my thesis about how we can find healthy foods and thrive and make our body heal. So I really finally learned that I need to add this wellness to my day. And here's my aha moment. I'm finally getting into my own rhythm, getting into the me that's really the joyful, happy, healthy that I am today. And that's also what my business is called, Happy, Healthy, and Hello Happy Nest. I finally ended up becoming comfortable with myself and creating a little nest, if you want to, with my own body. So that's when I became completely obsessed in sharing what I learned. Because I learned that self love, making time for wellness, and having more energy is super important. We can't put ourselves on the back burner. My life completely changed. I had some digestive issues before. I also had some skin and hair issues, and it completely cleared up. So it wasn't just from the inside that I healed, I also healed on the outside, and people started noticing that. Today I have two daughters that I'm trying to raise as the two best possible human beings that they could be, confident and strong, and I want to share that message with others, which is why I'm here today. Now imagine that feeling of energy that goes through your body where you're feeling you have a purpose in your life, you're finding a rhythm, a strut in your walk. What would it mean for you to experience the same thing? Well, you need to become your own bestie. And by becoming your own bestie, I mean that you have that energy, you're thriving, and you've found your purpose. Maybe that also means that you're healing with whatever you're struggling with right now. I call it falling in love with taking care of your body. And in fact, it's maybe doing it one step at a time. So let's visualize this together. And in fact, I have an image right here, but after you see this image, I would encourage you to close your eyes so that we are truly visualizing this and you're painting this picture in a way that it makes it clear to you. So what we see in this picture is a pretty unattractive looking backyard. And imagine that maybe you just purchased a house and this is the view that you see when you look out of your back window or maybe back patio. So you're standing on your back patio and you just think, oh my gosh, I would love to see a beautiful garden here. I would love to see flowers. I would like to see trees, maybe even a little area where I can sit and I can read and I can just be. And all this self-care is not happening in this particular dirt lot right there. And you can even see by this fence right there, there is a boundary around it, around this particular dirt lot. But in itself, it doesn't look exceptionally attractive or even inviting. So what are we going to do? Well, I mean, you could hire a company, but then again, might be really expensive and you're just limiting with your resources. You could also do this yourself, but it seems oh so overwhelming to just get even started. And you're just standing there and you're looking at it and you're getting exceptionally overwhelmed. Kind of like what I described to you at the beginning of this particular presentation. So let's close our eyes. What do you see in front of your eyes when you think about a little backyard haven? A haven where you can find self-care, you can find purpose, and where you can find energy. The healing takes place in that particular backyard haven. Now you can open your eyes again and you see this backyard that may look something along these particular lines. Maybe there are flowers, there's sunshine, but there are also some shaded area, some beautiful seating, and overall it's very peaceful and relaxing. Well, how do we get from this place to this place? Well, one thing is we have to start planting the seeds. And the seeds are to your wellness, to your particular self care. We don't just immediately create a backyard haven. What we have to do is maybe start with one step at a time. So, what I encourage you to do is just imagine that here, maybe you get started and you purchase just a few colorful flowers and you maybe put them along this fence area right there. And maybe you kind of like see these flowers as a little touch of color and how they are transforming this backyard. And then maybe a few days later, what you do is you maybe start plotting something in the middle, a little pathway. Or maybe you purchase a bench and you put it on the other side of this particular lot. So what is really happening is that over time, this dirt lot transforms into this beautiful backyard oasis. Let's call it an oasis where you find your purpose, where you find your power, and where you heal. What we just talked about is that things don't happen overnight. There's no magic pill to find your purpose, and there's no magic pill to heal. It will take time. So to transform your body, yourself, and of course, who you are will take time, and you have to be patient with it. Now, it happened to me. I found my purpose in life. I'm now a health and wellness coach, but I wasn't always like that. I would encourage you to start planting the seeds. Take some time to yourself, figure out what you're passionate about, and start planting those seeds today. So just to recap, I'm not special. I didn't have any special advantages when I started to heal. So for me, it was really just figuring out that the way I was leading my life was not the way that I knew it could go. I felt overwhelmed, stressed out. I did not feel healthy. And overall, I felt that there's more. I have a purpose. I just had to find it. And once it really fell into place, I felt one step at a time, things just started to work. Does that mean I didn't have any failures along the way? Not at all. It just means that I learned from those failures and I looked at them just like my own unique ways, my own unique steps that I had to take to learn something along the way. And I want to normalize failure and encourage you to think about it as something that if you wouldn't do failures, you wouldn't do things that are maybe not ideal. How in the world would you know that that particular path didn't work? So you just have to keep on moving, right? So if I can do it, you can do it too. And what I also want to ask you is, are you curious to learn more? Are you curious to learn more about what really helped me to transform into the energetic and happy and healthy person that I am today? If you want to take massive action and achieve results, maybe results you've never gotten before, and if you're like, yes, that's me right there, I'm offering you, we can take your time, and I'm offering you another little freebie right there. I have a free masterclass that I'm giving as a bonus of this amazing virtual summit. So what you're going to learn in the masterclass is the actual step-by-step system that I'm using to reach my wellness goals. Please feel free to reach out. Instagram is hello.happy.nest. Also, I have a podcast that's called Happy Healthy Hustle, and where I'm sharing quick little hacks to make your life just a little bit better as we are all hustling along. And of course, please feel free to reach out via email. Go to my website and you can send me an email at info@hellohappiness.com. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much and take good care.
Hello, viewers. My name is Nkem Chukwumerije, and I'm so excited to be speaking on this summit this summer. This is a really beautiful topic, and I can't get the phrasing out of my mind, finding healing and empowering others to thrive. Before we get into what I would love to share, I need to mention that I'm in Mexico right now. I'm in Puerto Escondido, and I have a very authentic setup. And so if you hear authentic sounds, just really embrace that. Um, Something that I'm going to talk about in this session is coming into an understanding of who we are in our authenticity, from the inner space to the outer space. And that kind of puts away all of the necessity for perfection and for things to meet a certain kind of criteria in order for them to be valid. And I hope that with my space and my sound, that can be appreciated. Before we move into today's topic, I'd love for us to settle into our bodies through the breath first. I find that in these very information heavy sessions that we engage in that provide so much value and insight for us, we lose track of who we are in an embodied sense. And we bring energy up into our minds and it kind of just stays there, which can lead to, I'll get into it as much as I can, but a lot of mental distress, a lot of emotional and physical energetic imbalance. So I'd love for us to come into our bodies through the breath before we move forward. So if you're in a position to have a comfortable seat, I invite you to do so, whether on a chair, on the floor, or maybe you're even laying down. That's beautiful as well. We're just going to center and come into the same space with our breath. So from here, I invite you to allow for some silence to fill the air around you, or at least silence from your own moving, your own physical space, your own quiet orbit. And then start to allow the breath to come into the picture, into the front of your consciousness, feeling where it lands, maybe in your chest. Maybe you're quite relaxed and you're already breathing deeply into your belly. Or maybe you're having trouble breathing today. That is completely valid. In any case, as you come into this moment, I invite you to be present with however you are, however you feel, whatever you're bringing into this space, into this session. And then gently relax your chest and breathe a little bit more deeply into the lower part of your lungs, your belly. And you can exhale out of the mouth. Just two more times, breathing into the belly here, inhaling, and out with the mouth. And one last time, breathing into the belly, filling up those lungs, appreciating those lungs, and exhaling out of the mouth. Yes, embodiment. It's one of the things that I love. So I pretty much characterize myself as a creative entrepreneur specializing in holistic wellness and creative embodiment. And it's because I do so many different things. But among all the things that I engage with in this life and how I support others in their own healing and their own finding themselves and sharing their true story is through writing and also through movement. And so I'll tell a little bit of my story first, and then I want to kind of focus on one particular aspect of this this theme here, and that is coming into presence with the true self, the inner self, and reconciling the inner self with the outward self or the personality. In my experience of finding healing, because this is separated into two topics, finding healing and empowering others to thrive. In my experience of finding healing, it pretty much came to a head in 2020, 2021, when the whole world was taken into this vortex of change, of transformation. That's putting it very simply, but it also has a lot of depth as well. And for me, I started to hear my inner self speaking to me in ways that I honestly had always heard, but I'd never made I never made a distinct effort to mold my life around how my inner self was guiding me. I'd always had a journaling practice that was really meaningful to me. My complaints, I put all my complaints in there. But when it came to understanding what my inner self was saying and using that to guide me forward in life and empower me and lead me to my own personal vitality and power, that didn't happen until 2020 when things started to really shift. And I would say that I was coming from quite an imbalanced place. I think many of us are imbalanced because mainstream society is an imbalanced society. It is mind oriented, it is logical focused, it doesn't make space for everybody naturally, right? It's not a collectivist society where we all come together with our own special medicine, with our own abilities to create and give and engage and receive. It is individualistic mainstream society. And I'm thinking that if you're viewing this summit, then you're probably coming from that paradigm that you are divesting from, honestly, because you're looking for an opportunity to connect with the world through the heart and to connect with others through the heart. And I'd always felt that, but I think my approaches were so divergent from what actually feels true and natural to me, which is a creative way of living, a resourceful way of living, a truly intuitive way of living. And that's for me. So this process of coming into balance has been a years long process. And honestly, it's a lifelong one. Through this process of coming into internal balance or coming into the balance of my inner self and my external self, them speaking the same voice, not me thinking one thing and portraying another thing on the external. I came to understand that what I really was feeling into was a healing frequency. And that allowed me to self heal or to come into a sense of respect for myself and my journey. And I think it's so great to think about healing as self-healing and not necessarily attributed to the outside world, because all we have is ourselves. All we have is our experiences. All we have is our bodies, our own bodies, and our own breath to bring us into an experience of life that feels authentic to us. And there are so many different, I mean, I'm here on the summit sharing insights that maybe you're watching and feeling like, oh, that resonates with me. And that maybe is inspiring for you, or maybe sparks something within you that sends you onto a different path or a different interest. And that's beautiful. But when it's coming from a place that is not innately part of you or yourself, then it's always going to lead you on a journey to coming back to yourself. So that's one of the things that I would love to share, is that this aspect of healing, spiritual healing, physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing, it really is done best, I believe, when we meet ourselves where we are. This is one of the things that really supported me in my own healing journey, the ongoing healing journey, to live in a frequency of healing, because I think this frequency of healing is the place where love and fear are really like third eye to third eye, right? They're really seeing each other. And you have hope and fear as well. Like anything that is on this higher frequency of love, hope, joy, peace, those things that magnetize love and abundance to us, meeting in that central point with anything that feels on a lower frequency, like fear, jealousy, worry, stress, anxiety, all of these things. We meet them in this healing frequency because we do the inner alchemy work. And I hope that I'm not using phrases that are inaccessible, but inner alchemy is this aspect of meeting ourselves where we are, meeting the darkness, meeting the fears where we are, and beginning to work with the energy in our bodies and in our minds and in our spirits and in our relationships around those fears, and moving them into a place of love and hope and light and peace where we can find that. So I think that there is, in a way, how we empower others to thrive through our own experiences. I'm hopeful that me being in my full experience and sharing what I'm sharing now in this brief session has sparked a little bit of interest for you to maybe sit with yourself a little bit more, to breathe a little bit more into the body and allow space for feeling in the midst of doing and talking and creating and having relationships and moving on to the next milestones of life and wanting more and more and more. I mean, that's part of the life, right? But we can also experience something that feels richer and that feels more aligned. And that is coming into balance through meeting ourselves where we are and appreciating that when we are living this life as humans, we are living and we can be living in a frequency of healing and a frequency of alchemizing the energy that we experience. We don't have to just experience anxiety or darkness. And it can be done through ourselves and through our relationships and through the external resources we have for support. One of the other things that I wanted to mention in this short time that I have left is that I have a writing prompt for you, because writing is a very powerful way that I use to support myself and my communities, my clients, my students, my friends, anybody who will talk to me. I will give a writing prompt to do some reflection. And so I'm going to leave you today with a writing prompt that I hope supports you in beginning to have a relationship with your inner self, or have a relationship with the subtleness of energies around you, so you truly understand that what you experience as you are is unique to you, and there is a way to experience life beyond just the darkness. So, my prompt for you is: how can you tell when energy has shifted? How can you tell when energy has shifted? Thank you so much for listening to me, viewing me in this summit. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conversations. And if you would love to stay in touch, you can do so on Instagram at naturallyfree123 or at Wellspring Words. And all the information is there. I would love to see you, speak with you, work with you, and support and guide you and learn from you. Thank you so much. Take care.
It was the night of my husband and I's wedding anniversary, and we were going on a date. As I put the finishing touches on my makeup, I stepped back from the mirror and I thought to myself, oof, yeah, I look pretty good. After dinner, as we were waiting for our Uber, a lady walked past and we asked her if she would take a picture of us. And when she handed back the camera, I was completely shocked by what I saw. My eyes were bloodshot. The skin on my face looked dry and flaky. My stomach was bloated. I looked tired and wound up all at once. And when we got into the car, I burst into tears as my husband just kind of looked on in grave concern. You know, it wasn't that I was distraught by my physical appearance so much as my internal state had manifested in the physical. There was so much going on in my life at the time that just didn't seem to be working. You know, I felt really unsure about my purpose, and I was feeling really frantic and totally misaligned, trying desperately to get my business to grow. I was largely neglecting my health. I wasn't exercising or eating in a nourishing way. I wasn't spending time with friends or paying any attention to my social life. And so I felt really disconnected. And I was largely ignoring the bigger issues in my relationship. But I was too frantic to do anything about it. And years passed, there was more striving, more pushing, more forcing. And then one day I woke up and I realized that years had passed and nothing had actually changed. And I decided right then and there that if I wanted to live in my full potential, if I wanted to live in the happiest and truest and most fulfilling way, then something needed to change. And it wasn't going to be working harder because I had tried that before. I realized at that point that I needed to do something that felt counterintuitive. It was time for me to slow down, and for a long time. It was time for me to be radical about being present, about taking good care of myself. It was time for me to focus on me, body, mind, and spirit. It was time for me to drop out of the doing and into my being and learn how to truly nourish my soul, to truly feel rested and happy. And so I embarked on a season of restoration and of deep transformation that I dubbed the slow year. And during this time, I reconnected to my roots and many of the principles of my upbringing in Australia. And so much changed. I prioritized tending to my spirit on a daily basis above all else. And I discovered this overwhelming sense of peace despite many hardships that actually occurred during my slow year, including 2 job layoffs and the end of my 11-year marriage. I relearned how to properly nourish my body, and I developed a really deep and sincere love for myself from the inside out. I let go of my need to control my career, and seemingly out of the blue, I manifested a dream job as an on-camera host of a travel show being produced for a major cruise line. And I found greater purpose in sharing about the transformative nature of slowing down in order to experience healing and empower others to thrive. Today, I'm so in love with my life. The slow year was a season of life that has turned into a way of life, and it's now a potent message that I get to share with others. Choosing to really embrace and embody slowness in my daily life has been the gateway for more momentum, for more joy, and the manifestation of a life that I could have only dreamed of a couple of years ago. And so today I want to share 3 of the important steps that I took to find healing and empower others to thrive. So step 1, I had to slow down and create the space. Often when people think of slowing down, they associate it with laziness or a lack of momentum. And I know that I certainly did for a long time. The fear of slowing down had kept me stuck in cycles of discontent for years, right? I was afraid that I wouldn't perform or reach my full potential, that I would be falling behind and that I wouldn't win at some imaginary race, that people would think I was lazy, that I wouldn't get it all done, that I wouldn't be able to pay my bills or to contribute to other household expenses. But what I found is that slowing down, when done with intention, is the precursor to deep and expansive life transformation, and it's the beginning of all healing. If you're not intentional about slowing down and creating the physical and the energetic space for your healing and transformation, then you will remain reactive to the situations around you. You'll be a servant to your job, to other people, to society's expectations of who you should be and what you should actually do with your life, and you'll remain stuck, much like I did. But the question then becomes, how do we actually slow down and create space when the demands of life feel like they're threatening us? With these 3 slow year principles that began to emerge for me during my slow year. The first is that we have to become hyper conscious of where our time and energy is spent through preparation. Then we have to give ourselves permission to slow down, knowing and understanding and believing that we are deserving of deep rest. And finally, we have to trust. We have to exercise faith over fear, knowing and believing that we are always loved, guided, and being supported by a power that is greater than us. It's only when we start tapping into these principles that the journey of transformation can begin. Step 2, I had to be a living example. If we want to empower others to thrive, we first have to become the fully embodied expression, the shining example of our own healing. And in fact, in the being alone, without any words, without any talking, we can inspire others to find and experience their own healing. Because when we're full of love and we're full of peace, it just overflows from us, right? And the presence of our loving energy, it can start to infiltrate the hearts and the minds of others without them even being aware of it, and without us even intentionally doing so. So several years before I embarked on my slow year, I decided to make my word of the year embodiment. And I started telling everyone that my word of the year was embodiment. And I started reading about it and thinking about it and listening to talks about it and intellectualizing this idea of embodiment. And in doing so, I missed the entire point of embodiment, which is all about getting out of our heads and into our bodies. There was actually very little embodiment that actually happened that year, and therefore there were no changes to my life. It wasn't until I actually decided to embark on my slow year and I began committing to the practices and the rituals of slowness that my true and deep healing began. Our healing, it can't just be an intellectual idea. It can't be something that we just talk about or listen to or read about. It has to be something that we actively pursue, that we're intentional about. We will know, you will know that you're healing when more often than not, you are being love, you are being peace. Only when we're committed to our healing and we're being a living example can we authentically show up then to share our stories. Which brings me to step 3, which is that I courageously shared my story and continue to courageously share my story. So in the final month of my slow year, I realized that so much of my life had changed. I was feeling healthier, more rested, more purposeful. People had been asking me, hey, like, how do I have a slow year? And the work of the slow year was on its way to really being birthed. But I was being faced with one final question: what to do about my struggling marriage. I'd been holding on so tightly for fear of letting go, despite the fact that I'd known for a long time that our season was coming to an end. I was fearful, wondering if I could really survive alone. I'd been married for 11 years since my early 20s. And I was asking, like, could I really look after myself financially alone in a country so far from family? Could I handle not having his companionship? Would I ever find love again? Would this transition throw me back into overwhelm, into hustle mode? Early one morning, I was sitting at my desk, I was doing my devotion, and the sun was streaming in. There was a little candle flickering on the windowsill. And in the stillness and the quietness of the morning, I heard this voice from deep within my spirit just saying, it's safe to let go. It was a deep knowing that it was time to say goodbye, that I was loved, supported, and being guided by a power greater than me. That I could surrender my life, my relationships, my future, and that I would live a life beyond my wildest dreams. That day, I made the decision to move out. And 3 days later, I received a call out of the blue from my agent, who I hadn't actually heard from in the 4 years that she'd represented me. I'd been booked to host a travel show for a major cruise line, exploring local culture, cuisine, and experiences at various destinations in the Caribbean Sea. And this is a dream job that I hadn't even dreamed of, with an incredible crew of people that I now consider to be friends. My life has just become one of massive, major miracles. I have this multi-dimensional life and career doing work that I love. I've deepened and expanded in the friendships that I have. I'm truly, deeply, undeniably happy and at peace for the first time in my life. And I attribute it all to the unique, exquisite, and undeniable power of slowness. Today, I have the beautiful opportunity to share my story of the slow year as a way to inspire and empower others. I connect with people everywhere I go, whether it's in the local coffee shop or in the hot tub at my rad new apartment building, or on incredible platforms like this one, the Purposeful You Summit. I feel deeply inspired and in awe of life itself and the incredible chance to experience true and lasting healing. So I have a question for you. Are you willing to slow down in order to make space for your healing? Are you willing to face all the potential fears that stop you from going deep into just being? And are you ready to use your healing and your story in order to empower others to thrive?
Hi, my name's Jen McFarland. I'm with Monarch Dawn. Thanks for taking some time to listen to my story. It's amazing to me that just 4 letters could have such a big impact on my life. And that's happened to me not once, but twice. Throughout my life, pretty much my whole life, I've lived with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. From some adverse childhood experiences and an abusive first marriage. Now, that childhood is over and that relationship is over, but the effects of that trauma lasted much, much longer. Started when I was about 17, getting bad, and for over 20 years, I was really suffering. And I was looking for answers. I tried everything I could think of, and I did the usual things like therapy and medication and self-help, tried prayer, just letting go and moving on. I tried an alternative therapy called EMDR, and all these things really helped, but they didn't get me to a complete place of stability that what I was really looking for. And that's really all I wanted. I just wanted to be neutral. I just wanted to be happy once in a while and appreciate the fact that I could spend time raising my kids. But no matter how hard I tried or what I tried, I still experienced really deep depressions and high anxiety. It was a struggle to get out of bed and face the day every day. And those days turned into months, turned into years. It affected my health, my self-image, every relationship I had, my ability to parent. It took a tremendous toll on me and my family. In the end, the answer I found that worked best for me, I didn't even find it myself, even though I looked so hard. My mom talked to a friend who had had such a great experience with this alternative therapy that she asked the therapist, Kevin Lay, if he'd come from the UK all the way to our local Michigan area and talk about it and do some sessions. And my mom signed me up because she knew I was suffering. I was anxious about this appointment. I didn't know anything about it, and I really didn't know what to expect. But I was miserable every day, and I was willing to try just about anything. So I show up to the appointment, and 45 minutes later, I was free. It was like this TFT flipped a switch on my pain. Poof, gone, just like that. It was amazing. And when I found that later on, I could learn this technique so I could share it with other people, I said, sign me up. I got trained and certified and became a TFT tapping practitioner. So I could share this amazing answer I'd been looking for with other people. Now, that was the first set of letters, but there was still something else lurking in the background that I hadn't discovered yet. So I went on, and now that the burden of trauma had been lifted, I looked at my life and I went, wow, there's some unhealthy habits here. But I didn't know how to handle habits, but I did know where I could figure out how to learn how. I went to my local library and I started reading everything I could get my hands on about habits and mindset, willpower, and goal setting. And then I did the really hard part of taking all that information and applying it and putting it into action in my life. I started with my pop habit. I drank at least a 2 liter of Coca-Cola every single day for years. Not great. And by applying TFT and the stuff I learned with habits, I was able to quit. And I haven't had a drop of pop since January 1st, 2014, nearly 10 years. So I'm like, cool, break a bad habit. Got that. Now I want to put some good habits in. So I wanted to exercise. I joined a gym. I met a great trainer. She worked and helped me through the process of participating and finishing 2 sprint level triathlons, one in the summer of 2015 and one in the summer of 2016. Then I thought, fantastic, bad habits, good habits. I figured it out. I put it all together in a program and added it to my TFT practice. Again, I found answers. I wanted to share it with other people. Sadly, at the beginning of 2016, we lost a young family member in tragic circumstances. And that was just the start of many losses and many painful, challenging experiences that my family went through. By the end of the year, I decided it made more sense for me to stop concentrating on this business. I got a job at a local restaurant and I concentrated on supporting my family through crisis after crisis and loss after loss. Thankfully, I had TFT that helped me through, but even so, it really has taken a toll on me and my entire family, and we're still recovering to this very day. If you go back to the beginning of the chaos of COVID in 2020, I got laid off of that job and I came home. I spent a lot of time still supporting and taking care of my family. But about a year in, I'm like, I'm going to dust off that business and try to work it online. I think people could use these answers. It could be helpful for people to be able to do tapping and learn about habits online. So I got some business courses and I started applying that knowledge again. Something was off. No matter how hard I tried again, and I was making a lot of effort, but I wasn't making progress. In an effort to connect, I went on Facebook and started looking at business groups, and I found one for women entrepreneurs with ADHD. And the light bulb went off. Oh my goodness, I totally forgot I have ADHD. I figured it out 10 years previously, but during that time, I really didn't think there was much to do for adult women. So I didn't do much with it. During that 10 years, a lot of research had been done, a lot of new things were discovered. And after a trip to my trusty library, I felt confident to talk to my doctor and talk about getting a diagnosis and treatment and management of my ADHD. And that's made a tremendous difference in my life. Also, what I realized is that my habit program was really a great support system for my ADHD issues. So now I had TFT and habits supporting ADHD. I had these great things to share with everyone. Now, while that's what I concentrate on, I think the things that I've learned throughout this process can apply to everyone. And so I'm going to talk about just some general things that I've learned throughout all of this life experience that I think can really help you work through your challenges and your difficulties, no matter what it is you're going through. The first thing I want to say is I believe that there are always answers. Even if you can't change the circumstances of your experience, sometimes changing your perspective can give you that comfort and relief that you need to live a happy, healthy life. I believe there's always answers out there. And to get those answers, here's some mindset things that really help. I call it the 3 Ps: be positive, patient, and persistent. Now, when I say positive, I don't mean don't ever acknowledge that there's something painful or negative that you're going through. It's not what I mean at all. Acknowledge that, work your way through the feelings, but then try and shift over back to a positive perspective. Look for the good things that are happening in spite of the bad things. And this does 2 things for you. It's not just to make you pleasant to be around while you deal with difficult things. A negative mindset or stress can mess up the way that we connect to the part of our brain that helps us find the answers we need. So staying negative blocks your ability to find that solution. The other thing is that if you're just concentrating on the negative things and the problems, solutions aren't in the problems, they're elsewhere. You need to understand the problem, acknowledge it, but not focus on it to look for answers. So having a positive mindset can help with both of those things. Then there's patience. Man, I wish everything worked as fast as TFT does, but in reality, things take time to really make change or work through difficult experiences. So give yourself the gift and support of saying, I'm going to give myself the time that it takes to work through this. And it'll take maybe longer than I want, but I'm still going to give myself that gift of time. And then persistence. Man, everybody goes through challenges. That's just life. But if you have that grit, that persistence to say, no matter what it is I'm going through, and no matter how long it takes, I am going to work through this to find my solution. If you're worth it, you're worth the effort, you're worth the time. Give yourself that gift of persistence. The next thing I want to talk about is awareness. Now, I was really aware that I had trauma and the experience from trauma, but I didn't know the solution. And what I can think that will help during that time is awareness for personal insight. How do you work best? What works for you? How do you play to your strengths? How do you support yourself through struggles? When you know what works best for you, it's easier to apply those things as you work through and look for answers. The The next level of awareness, like the ADHD, something's off, but I'm not sure what it is. Apply the 3 Ps, positive, patient, and persistent, as you look to try to find the problem. Because once you know that something's off and you figure out the problem, then you can look for the solution. And lastly, most importantly, grace. Treat yourself with kindness and compassion as you go through everything in life. Be curious, not critical, while you acknowledge if you mess up, and do your best to fix it and make amends. And be curious about how you can fix it so it doesn't happen again. But treat yourself with grace and kindness and compassion throughout that whole process. Everyone needs and deserves grace.
Good day, everyone. My name is Juanita Gaynor, and I am a success mindset coach, and I empower women to unleash their potential by unmasking the fear of success. And I help them unravel and heal the trauma and fear surrounding success and money that holds them back. And I am honored to be here today to discuss finding healing and empowering others to thrive. First, I would like to thank the amazing host of the Purposeful You Summit, Miss Julie DeLucca-Collins, for having me and creating this amazing platform. So, when we think about healing, I want us to think about the purpose of stillness. Now, before we get locked and loaded, what I would love for you to do is to breathe, relax, have a quiet space to take it in. So many times we are multitasking, we're doing so many other things, but we're going to talk about the purpose of stillness, especially when it comes to your healing. Now, I am a wordy person. I like to define words, go into words, really find the origin of them. So let's discuss healing. Let's define it. And healing goes beyond the physical recovery. It encompasses the mending of the emotional wounds and the restoration of the mental well being. Like it's the phoenix rising from adversity. You know, just as our experiences are unique, so is our healing journey. Each of our paths is a mosaic of personal growth shaped by the history, the resilience, and the aspirations. And when we think about that, you know, patience and stillness is a companion of healing. As we navigate challenges, it's so vital to treat ourselves with self compassion, love, and patience. And we want to offer the same kinds of things to friends in the process. So, when I think about healing and when I think about empowering other people, I think about my story. I am a survivor of childhood sexual and physical abuse, domestic violence, and my initial start was very, very traumatic. So when I got to a certain age when I finally had that final break and I started the counseling and I started moving, I had to understand that in spite of everything else, I had to learn how to keep still. And I don't mean the still where we sit in our seats and we don't move anything. I mean our mind. My mind was still racing. Even though I had taken time off, I had learned, self care, I had quote unquote learned self compassion. My mind was still moving thousands of miles per minute. And the reason why I wasn't comfortable with, you know, slowing that down was because I really would have to take in not only the pain and the trauma, but then I would then have to take in the lessons that I had learned to deal with the pain and the trauma. And I know many people are scared, like, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. I don't want to really think about those. I just want to just heal, move forward, and it'll be okay. That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. What I learned in that healing process is that when I let my mind sit still, did that pain come up? Absolutely. Did it hurt? Absolutely. But I realized that through counseling and through my own trials and own growth, just as the mind was bringing up the hurt, it was bringing up the solution to the hurt, to the pain. But I had to sit still long enough for it to come forth. Now, some people may say, well, how do I do that? How do I just sit still? I tell everyone, a journal is your best friend. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be something you whatever. It can be a simple notebook. I am a 5-subject notebook girl. I will get one. I think I have every journal I've written for years. You can decorate it any way you want to. And what I challenge you is when you feel like that, you're just going. You're just going. You're just going. Why am I going? Why am I doing all of these things? Because you may feel that you don't have a support system. You may feel that you don't have anyone to connect to. You may feel that asking for support or even seeking it is a sign of weakness. And it's not. It is a sign and a testament to strength. When you're asking for support, when you're seeking it out, you are connecting with others who can understand and validate your experiences, and it can be a cornerstone in your healing. So I have a client, and we'll call her Sarah. And despite hardships, she's dedicated to her well-being and practicing patience and seeking support. And it has transformed her into this beacon of being resilient. But she had to do the work of being still in her mind. And I think that's the most challenging part, because we feel that we can go through, well, I felt like I could just go through this roller coaster and be fine, never have to deal with anything, and I can move on and help others. And that wasn't the case. I had to sit and wrap my mind around some cold, hard facts. In that quiet stillness time, I had to evaluate friends. I had to evaluate family. I had to evaluate my job situation. I had to evaluate my living situation. Being still allows you to put everything on the line. It's like putting a big whiteboard and you're told to just write every facet of your life and the things that you want to do to improve them. And when you put every facet of your life and then you write down the pain points, what you'll begin to see is that for that pain point, you have reached a point in your healing and your growth where you see the solution and you can apply it. And as you start applying the solutions to those pain points, you'll begin to get stronger. You'll begin to feel like you are conquering these things. You'll begin to feel the healing that you're seeking. But right now, we're like, I'm doing this healing journey, but I don't feel like it. It's because I need you to keep still. When you've journeyed through these intricate paths of healing and discovering your inner strength and working on your self-empowerment, what has been explored, what I've explored, is the connections between my personal growth and the ability to uplift others. And so that is why I'm here today. I want you to know that you can do it. I want you to know that it's going to be tough sometimes. I want you to know that you're going to cry. I want you to know that some days you're going to just want to say, forget all of this. I'm not doing it. That's a part of the process. That's a part of the journey. And you're not less than for feeling that way. I want you to open up your heart and open up your mind to feeling those emotions, getting deep down and knowing that they are for the greater good of you. You know, I want to invite each of you to take a leap of faith into your own healing journey. You know, I want you to cultivate your inner strength and harness your power of self-empowerment. And remember your hands to empower others. You initiate a chain reaction of positivity that transcends boundaries. As we step away and we reflect and we look upon things moving forward, let's make a collective commitment to be agents of healing, resilience, and empowerment. Let's uplift those around us and create a world we are thriving that is just not a possibility, but a reality. Remember, stillness isn't bad. It's that quiet time that your mind needs to weather through the storm and to get you to the next level of your healing. I want to thank you for your time and the dedication to creating a better tomorrow. Together, we have the power to make a profound impact. What I want you to do is stay empowered, stay inspired, and above all, let us continue to thrive. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Okay. Wow. I have to say that was amazing. I loved it. I loved every single one of their stories and every single one of the lessons. Healing comes from within. And when we heal and allow our hearts to reopen up, then we can help others thrive. I hope that is something that you're thinking about and kind of like blowing your mind. So stay tuned and go to the next video for our next panel. I can't wait to introduce you to the incredible panelists. So until then, leave us your comments and don't forget, click subscribe to this video and follow all of our incredible panelists. See you then.